Nick,
Yeah,
first of all, thank you so much for doing this, man.
yeah, man. Anything for you. I think what you're doing is pretty cool. It's trying to curate information for people who need it and
Yeah.
maybe don't have access to this form of learning how to do something or learning about something. I think information sharing is great. And when you're tapping the sources who have their boots on the ground in specific areas that people want to learn more about, I think that's a pretty darn good way of going about it. About sharing information straight from the experts. Not that I am one, but I've done a lot of things.
Oh, you
So,
are. Oh, you are. Definitely. Thank you again so much for doing this. Nick, we go back a long way.
yes, we do.
So I'm excited to have this conversation with you. First of all, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Uh, uh, as a creative and also a manager of creatives,
Yeah.
there's always a number of different projects going on,
Yeah.
um, and I think what's been the most valuable for me to learn in the last few years is just how to keep everything straight,
Okay.
organized, and structured.
Yeah.
And just in the past few days, there's been some kind of mental breakthroughs in terms of some internal things
Yeah.
deep within me that I was not aware of, that I had been pushing the kind of blame
Okay.
off on something external, like
Okay.
managing tasks, managing your time.
Right.
Like I've always thought that apps for that, and you can
Hmm.
make spreadsheets and to-do lists, and I think actually it's something, at least for me, not an external thing, something more internal. And so it's been empowering to explore that and try to learn,
Yeah.
retain,
Right.
apply, and then ultimately integrate it, from this point on to until I find something better or maybe forever.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that you've been having these like realizations and you use the word integrate in that. Knowing what you do, how does the learnings that you get integrate with you being a community builder? First of all, like, also tell us like what does a community mean, and then we
Well,
can get into
yeah, I
tech
mean, there's lots
communities.
of different interpretations of community.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that is a growing concept to the point where it could be true that what community means now is a little less specific
Okay.
than what it used to mean. Um, in the sense that, like, now we'll use the term community to explain our social media following
Hmm.
or our email newsletter subscriber list or our customer base.
Huh.
And so I think that there is the notion that as community has become more impactful to business
Yeah.
and to life, not that it's any, not that it's ever been any less impactful, but I guess I should say now that the awareness
Yeah.
of how impactful community is to business and to life, we have attached that word to things that I do not believe are communities.
Okay.
So, what community is to me is a collection of individuals who are engaged with one another at a level that does not expect return from anything that is done, said, shared, offered. It is a strictly give first mentality.
Right.
It is a what I'm doing may very well be in my best interest, but there's another layer added on, and that other layer is what I'm doing not only in the best interest of me, but also for what I stand for and for what others in my circle stand for.
Yeah.
Um, I also would say that community is founded on relationships
Right.
and human connection and empathy and compassion and
Yeah.
vulnerability and support. Whereas networks,
Hmm.
which is currently being, I think, miscategorized as community,
Right.
networks are also made of individuals, but they're
Right.
also made of entities and organizations and companies. And I think the core distinction between a network and a community is that while communities are built on relationships, networks are built on transactions. And not necessarily always monetary transactions, but just like I'm going to do something for this person
Right.
because there's a value proposition that I see that I might want to take advantage of sometime in the future.
Exactly.
And so this is an element of investment, if you will.
Exactly.
Investment for the prospect of a transactional return versus, in a community setting,
Yeah.
investment for the interest of a community return, not a transaction, a relationship return, a
Yeah.
human connection return.
A
Uh, and
friendship.
and you know exactly what I'm talking about,
Yeah,
of
I know.
course. I mean, you have been, in fact, I just introduced you today to another founder in Milwaukee as one of Milwaukee Founders Community's first core like members, um, and you felt that immediately. I'm
Yeah.
sure we were getting together frequently. Everybody was helping one another in the ways that we all knew best, and there was no expectation of return,
Right.
except one of us is going to make it, and if
Yeah.
we all make it, or if one of us makes it, we all make it.
Exactly.
You know.
Yeah.
And so I'll just wrap this up by saying community is kind of ethereal. You know,
Yeah.
it is hard to articulate, but we know exactly what it feels like because we know when we don't feel it.
Yes.
I believe that without life, there is no business. There is no anything in life
Right.
without life. And life consists of relationships and connections between humans.
Yeah.
So if you can't have life without relationships and connections to humans, or at least not a fulfilling one, how can you have business without relationships and connections with humans? And I would argue that transactions and networks are relationships and
Mm-hmm.
interactions and connections with humans, but I don't know how sustainable those are
Yeah.
for life. As soon as you leave that company or start a company in a different industry,
Yeah.
did you just lose a portion of your network? If you did, there's your indication that maybe the community that you thought you had wasn't community after all.
This is profound. Do you think that we are losing that aspect of community? I'll tell you why. I was at a lot of these networking events, and in general, across the globe, I see this phenomenon. Everybody wanting to hand out their cards, if not physical cards these days, it's electronic cards, right? Here's my link, here's my link, here's my link. But out of all those people, I might be making 100 connections,
Mm-hmm.
but out of those hundreds, how many of them are really good relations that can then transform into doing good business?
Mm-hmm.
So do you think that there's a death of that approach or not?
Not a death. I don't. I believe that it could be true that as long as there's human life, there will be community. Now, the way in which we define that,
Yeah.
that's ever evolving.
Yeah.
I think community has caught the bug of sexiness. You
Mm.
know, um,
Discord tribes.
what's that?
Discord
Yeah,
tribes.
it's just the thing now. You know, it's
Yeah.
just it's having a moment. Community's having a moment,
Right.
and I hope that it continues to have this moment. I hope the moment never ends.
Yeah.
However, I will say that when something becomes popularized,
Yeah.
it becomes up for many different interpretations.
Hmm.
Startups is a good example, right? You
Yeah.
know, pre what happened in Silicon Valley and pre the dot com
Tech
era,
startups. Yeah.
all of that, startups were not a thing,
Yeah.
and they had a big moment, and then it kind of the bubble burst, and then it came back with a resurgence, and it stuck around, right? And slowly but surely, it made its way from the coasts
Yeah.
to right here in the Midwest, and now startups are like the thing in
Yeah.
business in the Midwest, right? We're on a similar trajectory with community,
Yeah.
but I think as more people start to wear the community brand,
Yeah.
it requires much more education on what it actually means. There, for instance, here's an example: Patagonia as an outerwear company.
Yeah.
We now know, and we've known for a while that the purpose of the company was not to create the best outerwear. The purpose of the company was to make money to fight climate change.
Hmm.
In fact, it's one of the most uniquely like organized companies
Positioned.
in the sense that its founder, all profits went directly to nonprofit, or I wouldn't say nonprofit, but directly to other entities
I
that
didn't
are
know that. Yeah.
tasked with fighting climate change. Well, within the last 2 years, I think it is, the founder sells the company, and all of that went to start an organization, a foundation, basically just to distribute capital to climate change efforts. So the Patagonia brand itself became popularized because it made great outerwear, and it was culturalized too, as if it became the Nike of like the hipster community, right? Or like the yuppie community, right? It's North Face and Patagonia. Which side are you on? It's Apple and Microsoft. Which side are you on, right? So it became popularized. It became culturalized, and there were some people, as a result of that, that learned.
Hmm.
Now I know why I'm wearing this brand because I connect with the brand's why and what it's doing with the money that I'm giving it for the outerwear. So the reason I bring that up is because community can be looked at as Patagonia in this sense.
Yes.
It's always been important, or it's becoming more important now.
Right.
But why people think it's important may not be the actual reason that it's important. Because there's a lot of people who are just wearing Patagonia because they wanted to keep up with the Joneses, they wanted to wear nice things,
Right.
and they could care less of what the money was going to. So they weren't educated on the why behind the strategy or the business or the products. If community is a product,
Right.
which is becoming a thing now,
Mm-hmm.
it's a monetizable product.
It is. Yeah.
Do the people who are building those communities and participating in those communities know the why behind the product and know the importance behind why community is essential? If you want to make things easier on
Right.
yourself,
Yeah.
community is essential. We say, as a founder,
Yeah.
what's the first thing you need to do before you go to market? Go build your network, right?
Right.
We recognize that having a network is essential
Is of value.
to sales,
Yeah.
to marketing, to
For health.
growth, to partnerships.
Yeah.
We don't necessarily treat community in the same way. And the
Hmm.
big difference between community and a network, as I mentioned earlier, especially to a startup founder, what happens when that startup fails and doesn't exist anymore? Does all that work that you just put into building a network pay off? Does that carry over? Versus community. People in your community are going to be there, especially when your
When you're
startup
done.
failed.
I like the difference that you make. One is very transactional, and the other is, in a way, perpetual,
Hmm.
or in theory, meant to last.
Hmm.
What do you see in the tech sphere? I know technology is bringing us all together
Yeah.
with all these apps and chat gpt and everything, but as we talk here today with ai and all of that, how is it connecting with community? So that intersection of tech and community.
Well, I mean, it's intersecting in a lot of the same ways that it always has.
Yeah.
It's just that now there seems to be a lot more intention behind it.
Okay.
Whether that intention is, well informed or ill informed,
Yeah.
everyone's familiar with the concept of a meetup,
Yeah.
right? Particularly in the tech space.
Yeah.
You've got dev meetups, you've got meetups for every like kind of dev
Niche.
language,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You've got hackathons, you've got happy hours, right?
Right.
And a lot of that stuff prior to the pandemic was programmed. It was like agendized, was designed to happen. But I would say most of it was just organically, kind of produced. For instance, go back to kind of using Silicon Valley as an example of like the first like widely known like tech hub or startup hub. A lot of the people that I know that were in the valley at that time, or have spent a lot of time in the valley in the tech or startup realm, they see what communities in the Midwest are doing in terms of having all of these happy hours and accelerator programs and just opportunities for the startup community to gather. They see it as important, but they also don't understand why we have to plan those things,
Correct.
because there's such a density
Hmm.
of those types of assets in the valley that it happens organically, right?
Correct.
So I'm kind of digressing here, but
No, no, go ahead.
the the aspect of community has been around forever, right?
Right.
We've since realized the importance of it on the heels of a global pandemic that had us at home alone,
Yeah.
uh, without human connection
Right.
in person. We're recognizing that it is important because we realized what it felt like not to have that, right? And so with tech, in terms of enabling community, not just being like the shared interest of community, it it's hard to say, but I think any sort of marketplace technology has the potential
Hmm.
to develop community. But would you say that you feel as though that you're in a community of people who use ride sharing apps, Uber or Lyft? Why not? There's a network of you.
Yeah.
You're all doing the same thing. You're all using the same product. You're all trying to solve the same problem.
Correct.
Why isn't there community there? It's built on a transaction.
Exactly.
You don't. You
I
don't.
just need my ride
You
and
could
it's
care
done.
less about somebody that you don't know
Huh.
being able to flag down a ride that will help them solve the problem that you just solved with the app, right? Maybe there was community at the beginning of ride sharing because there was a connection with the solution. And if you were one of the first people to use it, of course you're going to go tell other people about it.
Yeah.
And what are you expecting in return for being an ambassador?
Nothing
Not really.
really.
I mean, maybe
Yeah.
some like
Maybe a free
pride
ride.
or ego from like being the first to know about something in your
Yeah.
circle or whatever. But
Yeah.
we have this instinct to want to share when something valuable in our life has come along and it's helped us.
Yes.
And if we do not hesitate to share that with other people, I think that's a stronger sign of community than how can I monetize this, or how can I like hold this close to chest and only give it out to people when I think there's something that they can return to me in exchange.
Hmm.
That makes sense?
Yes.
So the tech enablement of community, I think it's hard to say whether or not some of it is actually creating community and some of it is just creating networks and audiences and marketplaces and things like that. I do think that most tech enabled products that have a desire to create community have the potential to create community, but it's all about the design.
Yeah.
Are you designing it around the incentive of the transaction? Are you designing it around the incentive of human connection and fulfillment and giving first? And I'm probably making this sound so simple, but to all you listeners and viewers out there, like this is something I think about all the time, and so I can understand that if it comes across as me seeming like community is the hammer and everything is a nail, but like as I said to you earlier today, without people and the connections of people,
Yeah.
there are no entities, there are no organizations, there are no companies,
Hmm.
there are no neighborhoods,
Right.
right? So without people, there is nothing. So if you're not able to experience the benefits of human connection,
Correct.
you're likely going to experience less of the benefits of anything. At least that's the way I believe it.
Well said.
I don't know if I've ever said it like that before. Because again, I'm going through this all day, every day, and I'm just saying it different ways in lots of ways. So, and that's a branding problem.
Right. No, I'm gonna be honest here. I'm still just like thinking about all the things that you are saying, because when you hear something and you want to dissect it down, I'm still thinking about the first difference that you said about community versus a network, and then critically thinking when you brought that example of Uber out, made me think like there are so many transactions that we are doing through these apps that have made transactions very easy, but connection very difficult.
No, I don't know that I would say that the current
You don't think so?
I don't fully agree. So
Okay.
let's flesh this out.
Yeah.
Any prompt to connect two people is an opportunity for community. So any tech-enabled, way that we're putting people in touch with each other is presenting an opportunity for community to be formed.
Right.
But it's not always, and I would say we're getting to be to a point where it's mostly not producing community, which is why I'm guessing you said that tech enablement of human connection is making it difficult to produce community. I think the the speed
Yeah.
and the pace of which tech does enable us
Yeah.
to connect with other people makes it more challenging to spend more time or more thought in your interactions with people that you're connecting with. Like, I'll use this as an example because we were just talking about this with somebody earlier today. With Milwaukee Founders Community, uh, we have an event that we host that allows a few founders to get up in front of the audience
Yeah.
and speak. And I've observed over my several years working in this realm that when founders are given the chance to speak in front of an audience, they generally take that opportunity to talk about their company,
Yes.
right?
Even if nobody wants them to.
Yeah, that's another story, but yes. And there's a ton of information that's accessible
Yeah.
to the people in that room about their company, but not very much about them as a human,
Hmm.
about their human experience building the company that they've spent all their time talking about when they've been given a microphone. So I encourage those founders in prepping them for their talk to focus their talk on their experience as a founder with the company story as the backdrop, not as the major
The
piece.
focus.
Yeah, the major focus. And I mean, the feedback doesn't lie. I think that if someone introduces themselves before they introduce whatever it is that they're working on, and there is a opportunity for the people to connect with the person,
Yeah.
the opportunity for community rises significantly. And it all goes down to like identity, you know? We know that entrepreneurs are challenged with an identity crisis when the company or the organization that they've put all their time, money, energy, effort into
Yeah.
doesn't work out. Or it does work out and they sold the company and they're
Yeah.
no longer a part of it.
Still, the
Identity
crisis is the
crisis,
same.
right?
Yeah.
But they're still the same person they were when they were running that company
Yeah.
in terms of, I mean, they have lots more experience
Right.
and expertise now, but who they are in their essence is it's still there.
Still the same. But I think what you are referring to in the reference of founders is applicable for professionals, for self employed people, anyone in general.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right, and I think the surgence of community focused programs and events and initiatives and things like that. I think the corporate side of the economy has has had a lot to do with that, right?
Yeah.
Post pandemic, we are living in a corporate world that has most employees working in a hybrid capacity
Right.
with their companies expecting the same kind of output, creativity, uh, interaction between their employees, the same kind of team cultures, things like that. Well, with not coming to the office every day, that makes it a bit harder.
Yeah.
So, a lot of attention on community has been put toward, you know, the larger portion of the workforce.
Hmm.
Well, I don't necessarily think that we can say that. I don't know this anyway. If someone has this answer, I'd love to know. What is the split between your corporate kind of 9 to 5 employee based sector of the workforce versus the entrepreneurial, the self employed, the
Hmm.
freelancer, the creative, if you will? And I'm not saying that if you're a freelancer, you're a creative, and I'm not saying if you're working in the corporate environment that you're not a creative.
Yeah, no, that'd
But
be
the
an
creative
interesting thing.
economy overall is
Yeah,
based on economic growth
right.
from new ideas, new
Ideas.
discoveries, new ways of doing things. And that's not necessarily just startups. It's not just our typical kind of lens of innovation. It could be musicians, it could
Right.
be small business owners, um, it could be doctors. It could be everything. Everything has the opportunity to become economically valuable.
Yeah.
I think creative pursuits have a higher opportunity to become economically valuable. And creatives are unfortunately not given the same access to all of these community programs and initiatives and support that the corporate side of the workforce is getting access to and getting like funded, to
Okay.
participate in. So it makes it difficult for the creative economy folks to find community, even though they need it just as much as anybody else. And I
Right.
think that because their pursuits have the opportunity to be just as economically impactful, if not more,
Yeah.
than our current, economic pursuits, we should be at least providing an equal amount of community support in programs and initiatives to creatives as we are to, corporate employees.
I agree with that. And just to understand what you're saying the side of things is a little more organized, and they have a lot of these resources and HR management to make these.
Yeah, I'm not going to say that I think it's more organized. I think by virtue of the contract that you have with your employer,
Yeah.
you are you are maybe more incentivized or motivated to participate
Yeah.
on a regular basis than if you're running your own company.
Mm-hmm.
You've got more responsibilities,
Mm.
arguably less bandwidth, less financial resources that
Right.
will grant you access to these types of programs.
Absolutely.
So because, and I can even take it a step further in saying that, like, because of the difficulty of the
Yeah.
work that creatives are doing in terms of not just what it is that they're good at doing, but also running a business and developing new customers and partners and things like that. The load that they're bearing is arguably more than that of somebody who's, working 9 to 5 in a job that they don't have to wear all the hats. They just wear their hat, right?
Yeah.
And therefore community may be even more important to the creatives. I'm not saying there is more support for corporate employees than there are for creatives. I'm saying it's probably being accessed more on the corporate side than in the creative side because
Yeah.
of all the other things that creatives, have to handle. But that's also a generalizing statement because people on the corporate side have other responsibilities that maybe more people on the creative side don't, such as families and a mortgage and like
Yeah.
things like that. So honestly, you can compare it. I don't know that one is going farther than the other. I just think that it's not a one size fits all. It's not a cut and paste.
Yeah.
What works for one won't work for the other. And there's multiple different ways to form community around are going to have all kinds of factors associated with them in either environment as well. So
Yeah.
point being, like, we don't have a very good understanding of community. Therefore, we cannot articulate what it feels like, uh, how to create it meaningfully. Uh, and after doing it for about 8 years, I'm just now, learning how to more effectively explain, communicate the importance of it, because I see its overall importance of it uh, being challenged
Right.
with definitions and schools of thought that I don't fully agree with. So I just don't want to see community watered down,
No,
essentially.
I get what you're trying to say. I get what you're trying to say. So just for the benefit of the audience, you had mentioned MFC earlier in this
Hmm.
conversation. So could you talk a little bit about what you do there? I know that you're a founding member there.
Hmm.
So if you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So MFC is an acronym for Milwaukee Founders Community, which is a decentralized, asynchronous community of entrepreneurs who are focused on challenging the status quo. And we have three pillars of focus. One of is customers, helping founders get customers for their companies. One is capital, helping founders get capital. And the third and most relevant to this conversation is community. One of the most distinguishing things about Milwaukee Founders Community, at least in Milwaukee's ecosystem, is that it is an initiative that is ran 100% for founders by founders. We are all volunteers. We all have some level of experience in being a startup founder. Some of us have that as a current title. Some of us have that as a past title, and it's basically like a very quickly growing collection of founders, entrepreneurs, and supporters of those types of people. And we host events, we host pitch events, we have given away grant funding to early stage companies. We've had co-working days. We're having a founders retreat in a few weeks here. It started here, actually, where we're doing this interview. Uh, Kind of as a byproduct of my tech company's market test to try to get remote creative people together in spaces that were accessible to them as co-working spaces and potentially even community hubs for those types of people. And the first, market of customers that I wanted to zoom in on was early stage startup founders, and we met through that, and we had days and days and days of co-working here at Wantable Cafe, and that turned into a weekly happy hour, which then turned into the first ever Founder Fest. And after the first Founder Fest, me and a few other founders said, we got to make something of this. And so Milwaukee Founders Community was born. That was about 2.5 years ago. We've since had, it's a couple of thousand unique attendees over the course of the last 2.5 years. We're sponsor supported at this point. We are exploring the ideas of how to make it monetizable and self sustaining. We're exploring all kinds of different ways of doing that, whether it be, monetizing a level of our membership, which is free currently. Having some sort of space that we can operate and get revenue from leasing office or living space or lodging space. There's all kinds of ways to monetize a community of really, really smart, really, really ambitious, and really, really gritty people, especially when they're in a community. And what we're doing as a community comes first, rather than any individual company or any individual founder in that community.
Interesting, man. This all ties up. It all ties to what you said earlier. So, is that what you feel is like your calling to do is connecting people?
Yeah. I think I was slapped in the face with my life purpose when I was 25. And that purpose is to connect
Yeah.
people to place, and people to potential. And that's my life purpose. Like, that's what I get up every morning and aim to do in every moment of every day.
Yeah.
But to have some balance in life, I had to take that purpose and get more specific with it
Yeah.
when choosing a career. So my for my career, I choose to point that focus of people to place, and people to potential
Right.
in the direction of the creative economy. So I find myself connecting creatives to other creatives, as well as to resources that help creatives to places
Yeah.
where they can connect with other creatives and resources,
Sure.
and creatives to potential ideas and supporters and ambassadors and partners that they may not have come across if not by chance.
Right.
So my goal in my professional career at this point is to meet as many cool and creative people as I can, and try my best to make sure that those people know as many of the other cool and creative people that I know,
Okay.
for the benefit of the economy, for the benefit of society, for the benefit of humanity, because I believe that creatives are the most important asset in shaping the future of the world.
I agree with that, and I don't think we got through like half of the things that we wanted to talk today.
Were you surprised?
No,
We
I'm
could do it
not
again.
surprised. Yes, we'll have to do a part two
Okay,
if you're open for it.
of course.
And
I'll talk to
this
you
is
all
just
day.
this is just a start. But Nick, thank you for doing this, and we're gonna talk more.
Yeah.
So this is gonna be continuing, and thank you for making the time. You know, I always love talking with you. Thank
Uh,
you so much,
uh,
Nick O'Brien.
Nick O'Brien, Naveen Kankante.
Thank you.
Thank you, brother.
All right.